Hi, welcome back to Fast Recap, and today I'm going to tell you about a 2011 movie called Bad Teacher. If you like our video, you can support us by liking and subscribing. It's only a few seconds for you. But for us, it's a huge step towards our goal of 1,000 subscribers. A young, pretty girl named Elizabeth quits her job. She spent some time as a teacher, but quickly found a less complicated source of income. After saying goodbye to her colleagues who she didn't even know, and receiving a symbolic gift from them in the form of a certificate for $30, she gets into an expensive Mercedes and drives off into the sunset. When she arrives at her luxury mansion, she meets her husband and his mother, who are clearly unhappy about something. Elizabeth doesn't know when her husband's birthday is, and the woman tells her that it is actually today and that a normal wife would have remembered. She immediately gets an answer and takes the certificate from her bag presented by her colleagues, saying that of course she remembered her birthday and even prepared a present. The family, however, is not impressed and Elizabeth is kicked out. 3 months later, a car pulls up to the school, but now it is not a brand new Mercedes, but some rusty piece of junk. Elizabeth gets out of it and goes to her classroom. She's got her job back and she's back to being a teacher. Since she no longer has a rich husband under her belt, she has to make the connections in the collective that she used to avoid in every possible way. She meets her roommate, Amy Belikova, who immediately begins to piss off the character. Elizabeth, despite the failure of her husband, does not lose hope of finding a new daddy. She tries to get acquainted with a rich man in a bar, but constantly suffers a fiasco. The tipsy Elizabeth wanders into her class, where at this point the girls are discussing vacation. Elizabeth rolls out the TV and turns on a movie to the kids and goes to bed herself. During lunch, a gym teacher named Russell joins her and offers to have coffee together. The girl immediately rebuffs him, saying there's no way she's going out with a gym teacher. He jokes it off and leaves, and his place is taken by Amy, who tells Elizabeth how she should work. In the hallway, she notices a young guy and wearing an expensive watch. She meets him and discovers that he is a new teacher named Scott. But what interests her most is the fact that the watch on his hand is made by his own family, and he himself is incredibly rich. Finding out that he is not married, she decides by all means to get him as a husband. The trouble is that Scott is a fan of big breasts, and Elizabeth is not by nature graced with it. So she decides to have an operation. But of course she has no money for the operation. In the meantime, Elizabeth learns from her student about the yearly car washing at which the school collects money for charity. Elizabeth at first refuses to participate. After Elizabeth learns which amounts of money are turning in at this event, she decides to run straight to the director and ask him to send her with the children. The next day she arrives in a short skirt and tank top, causing an unprecedented stir among the students' fathers. They line up to wash their cars, and some even decide to wash their cars twice. In addition, Scott arrived in a luxury Porsche, which finally convinced Elizabeth of her right choice of future husband. Elizabeth has earned a considerable amount of money, and she decides to put some of it in her pocket. Amy notices this and immediately runs to the director with this information. He tells her that not only has Elizabeth earned dozens of times more than usual, but she has also earned special thanks from students' parents. Some of them even insist on making the activity a weekly event. During a parent-teacher meeting, one of the fathers approaches Elizabeth and hands her $100, asking her not to load up his son too much. And this is where the heroine gets to the point. What a gold mine has been in front of her all this time. One by one, she goes around to students' parents and hints at a cash reward, and they, of course, gladly splurge. Christmas time arrives, and everyone gives each other gifts. Amy gives Scott the book and thus grow closer. At a school New Year's Eve party, Elizabeth is approached by the gym teacher and suggests that she go to the gym. She refuses him and goes dancing with Scott. At one point, he calls her away for a serious conversation. Elizabeth follows him in anticipation. Scott tells her that he has found someone special, but he is afraid to tell her. A happy Elizabeth prepares to hear those words, but Scott declares instead that he is in love with Amy. A frustrated Elizabeth goes to the gym teacher and asks if his invite is still on. They retire to the gymnasium and have a heart-to-heart talk. Elizabeth asks Russell why he decided to become a gym teacher, and Russell responds by asking why she should get her breasts enlarged since she already has plenty of them. So she goes to the store. On the way, she meets Garrett and his mother. She suggests that Elizabeth join them for Christmas dinner, and the heroine, for lack of other plans, agrees. At dinner, Garrett reads out a poem of his own composition. Elizabeth, taking him aside, asks if they are dedicated to the girl Garrett is always hitting on in class. She explains to the boy that that girl is out of his weight class. He's just not meant to date her. They also advise him to finally get out of that stupid sweatshirt already. Elizabeth is invited to see the school rock band and says she will definitely come. At the concert, Russell hits on her again, but she habitually rejects him. Scott announces from the stage that he has composed a song for the woman he loves. Elizabeth is sure that it is about her and goes on stage contentedly. Scott, however, says that he wrote the song for Amy. Elizabeth learns that the teacher whose students pass the test best will receive a bonus of $6,000, which is exactly what she lacks for surgery. She cancels the movies and makes the kids study the textbook. Then she conducts something in between a quiz and a game of dodgeball. Kids who answer the questions wrong get a ball, but those who answer correctly can throw the ball at Elizabeth. The fun is interrupted by the gym teacher, who severely reprimands the children and helps one of them throw the ball correctly. However, in spite of the intense training, the results of the midterm tests are below average. Elizabeth decides to take matters into her own hands. She discovers where the test envelopes come from and, pretending to be a journalist, makes an appointment with the curator. She tries to get the answers out of him, but he won't give in. So Elizabeth decides to seduce him. She says she dreams of making love on his desk, and the curator takes her to his office. There, she discreetly slips a sleeping pill into his wine and waits for him to pass out. When she finds the answers, she photographs them and leaves, leaving the hapless lover to snooze on the floor. The students pass the test perfectly, and Elizabeth receives the award that Amy has been receiving for 6 years. This pisses Amy off, and she tries to dig up dirt on a colleague. Through a student, she learns that Elizabeth is smoking illegal substances and tries to find them in her desk. The problem is that it's locked. Switching desks, she drags Elizabeth's desk into her office and calls in a locksmith to help her pick the lock. Inside, she finds the answers to the test. Amy contacts the curator and asks him about Elizabeth. The curator says he knows the woman with the photo, but assures her that she is a journalist and not a teacher. Meanwhile, Elizabeth and Scott go on a field trip, during which Gareth confesses his love for the class hottie. She pokes fun at the guy, after which he runs off in tears. Elizabeth runs after him and, finding the guy in the barn, calms him down by telling him that it's just not his time, and that he's sure to have a blast at college. He calms down, but still does not want to go out, as he is ashamed to show his classmate. Then Elizabeth takes off her bra and gives it to the kid. Then she takes him to the cafeteria, where she tells everyone that she caught Gareth with a high school girl. The classmates cannot believe it, so Gareth pulls out bra and instantly becomes the center of attention. In the evening, Elizabeth and Scott simulate something strange in bed with their clothes on. Scott rubs that spot on the girl and loudly expresses his pleasure. Elizabeth, meanwhile, pretends to feel insanely good. Determined to spoil Amy's mood, Elizabeth discreetly dials Scott's number from the phone. Eventually, when she picks up the phone, she hears the couple talking about enjoying each other. After experiencing all this nonsense, Elizabeth runs away from Scott. She meets Russell, he thinking she slept with Scott, blows her off and says he's going to bed. The returning heroes are greeted by a furious Amy, who informs Elizabeth that she is going to jail for cheating on the tests. In a panic, the girl asks her neighbor to go to the curator and give him a certain envelope. He complies with her request, and the curator receives a stack of photographs with incriminating evidence against him. During the conversation with the director, the curator says that he has never seen Elizabeth before, and all his previous statements should not be believed, as he is an alcoholic. He then stands up and leaves, leaving everyone bewildered. The silence is interrupted by Amy, who declares that Elizabeth is actually taking illegal substances and demands a search of her office. The director calls the cops with a dog, and the dog, without thinking twice, bursts into Amy's office, where there is a desk that Amy once took from Elizabeth's office and completely forgot about it at. The cops find a bag of substances in her desk, and when Amy starts screaming, they arrest her and take her to the police station. A few weeks pass. Amy is transferred to a school for troubled teens, and Scott immediately forgets her. After that, he tries to make a move on Elizabeth, but she has had time to change her life goals during the year and no longer wants to be just someone's plaything. She blows off the rich guy and runs to Russell. As usual, they exchange jokes, after which they kiss passionately. What do you think of the movie? Write your opinion in the comments. I think it's a great comedy with excellent humor and the spirit of 2011. I recommend to watch this movie together with your other half. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more such videos.